Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well and that you had a great Thanksgiving. Today I'm going to get straight into my video and what I want to say. It concerns the interview with Brandon Shurtleff. Specifically, what I want to talk about is what were the Wondras businesses and who worked for them. This is something that stood out to me as a red flag. In his interview, Brandon's interview with JLR, you can go back and listen to it if you haven't. It's an hour of just a lot of information. And I was so completely overwhelmed with everything he said in that almost an hour that I actually sat down with a notebook and tried to make points and notes about everything he said. And I've been studying this for a couple days, trying to put some pieces together. The thing that sticks out to me right now with what he said is I'm wondering what exactly the Wondras were doing when it came to their businesses. Now, they say they have Faith Taxi. Brandon tells us at one point they had a oil change business that he worked at as well. It was Wondra Lube. Now, I haven't seen any sign of that, but I'm going to take him at his word there. He said eventually it got shut down. But what stands out to me is that there were so many people in and out of that house, according to Brandon. It sounds like, there was a Randy from North Carolina, and he, when he spoke of him, he said he had crashed his vehicle and needed to get it fixed. So Sarah went and picked him up, and he lived with them, worked during the day, he said, so he'd have a place to sleep at night. There were multiple people he brought up. Some he couldn't even remember their names, and said that they were living in the house. And then many times, what ended them living in the house was Sarah threatening them with a gun. This happened more than once. There's arguments at the end of each relationship, according to Brandon, and Sarah ends up threatening these people with a gun. Brandon also spoke of the fact that he wasn't getting paid. When JLR asked him the question, how much did you make? How much did they pay you? He doesn't say how much they paid him. He says they charged $225 to $250 per mile. He never said what they paid. And then later in the interview, he says that Stacy offered to get him a gun, saying he wasn't a felon, it'd be okay for him to have a gun. Which, just sidebar here, I think the gun issue may be a way to keep people from leaving. And that goes into what I think was happening here. So let's talk about human trafficking. I know it sounds extreme, but it's something I've kind of looked into, along with some other types of trafficking when it comes to Summer's case, which I'm way more knowledgeable on than this even. So here's the definition I pulled off Google of human trafficking. Let's take a look. So, traffickers are adept at identifying people with noticeable vulnerabilities or needs. They may scour specific locations such as bus stations, shelters, or local malls looking for someone without a safe place to stay, or who they may be able to charm with their flattery and attention. According to Brandon, they did this under the guise of, we want to serve people, we want to do what God wants us to do, and help people. This is their whole thing about bringing in these people who end up driving for them. And an interesting thing that Brandon said was that they pretended to be religious. They went to church, paid tithes, and they received money from the church to pay their bills. So, under the guise of religion and doing things that, quote unquote, God told them to do, I think they were, if it's not complete human trafficking, it's some form of it. They're preying on these people who have vulnerabilities, who need, and he mentioned many times homeless people. They give them a place to stay, and they end up driving for them. But if Brandon, who was probably more of a friend to the Wondras and was with them longer than these people, was not getting paid, I doubt very seriously the people they brought in were getting paid. So they're having these people work for them, and then maybe when these people are like, I can't pay off my debt to you, because you drove me from the airport to here, I'm not able to pay this. And they want out. They want their freedom. Perhaps Sarah is trying to keep them from leaving with that gun. Now, he said she was trying to get people out. And that's a possibility, I know. But just the situation going on there and what the vibe is, I'm thinking there might be a possibility that she was trying to keep people there. Also very upsetting to me was that Brandon said there was a crawl space that you could get to from the Wondras' bedroom. It was cut in the floor, and there was a square of carpet that covered it. I don't like that at all. Who are they keeping in there? What are they hiding in there? Could be weapons. Just sounds very, very shady. So he went into the day of Michael's disappearance. I don't want to go into a lot of this. I know the police are, they're working on this, and some things are kind of on the down low right now. But for that day, there's contradictions in where they were at what time. But it does sound like they picked a guy named Adrian. Brandon doesn't know his last name. They picked him up from the airport on that day. Brandon says he came to visit his son and old girlfriend. He also says Adrian hasn't been arrested or talked to by the police. He says Adrian was there a week and a half before Michael Vaughn went missing, and then about 2 days after, he thinks. This was after he said he was telling what happened on the day Michael went missing, and he said first that they went to pick up Adrian that very day, and then second he said that he'd been there about a week and a half before Michael went missing. So that's just one big contradiction there. I think that's all I'm going to cover right now. There was one more thing. He did say that Stacy kind of pulled him aside at one point and said he had a huge bill to pay. He said it was a Verizon bill, but he looked at the bill and said it was around $15,000 to $20,000 because Stacy was buying phones and this and that. So Stacy's in a huge amount of debt, and I'm just wondering what other shady things they would do to try and get money to pay off a debt like that. It sounds like they were constantly buying phones and switching phones out, and so got a new phone and then started the business again was something he said after she got a new phone. I'm like, why would you need to start your taxi business again after you get a new phone? There's a lot of stuff going on in Stacy and Sarah's Wondras' house. they had a lot of things going on, and none of it sounds logical or normal. And that's what stuck out to me the most. And we know that Stacy and Sarah are already behind bars, so that's good. And we know there was definitely some shady stuff going on in their home and around their home. But that's it for me. That's all I wanted to share. I studied, got more information than that, but that's not something I feel like we should really be talking about right now. And that's it for me, guys. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.